Welcome to Am I the Bad Guy? Am I the bad guy for yelling at my ex and telling her to stop trying to make our kids perform for her after the death of her husband? My ex wife and I share two children. Our daughter is 13 and our son is 11. She was remarried for 7 years and has two children with her late husband. He died a week ago. My kids were not close to the man. He was a hard ass, and the kids found him overly strict, and I agree. And they didn't like being around him. The relationship at best was strained, but they confided in me over the years that they hoped their mum would leave him. She loved the guy though, and when he died last week, she was a mess. Our kids were with me when it happened, and she wanted to see them, so I brought them over. They comforted their mum, and she told them repeatedly it was okay to cry, it was okay to miss him, that they were all going to miss him. And the kids said nothing. She kept repeating it. I told her I thought the kids got it. When the kids saw their mum again, she was halfway through planning the funeral, and asked if they would be able to do a reading or something for it. The kids said they wouldn't be able to. She was with them for a while and then said since they weren't crying much, maybe they could take a reading and see how they did on the day. Kids told me about it when I spoke to them, and they asked if I could talk to their mum. I told my ex not to force the reading. The funeral day came. I showed up for my kids. They were hanging back with me a lot, and they told me their mum kept watching them, which I witnessed myself. For the funeral, I sat behind them since she wouldn't let me sit with them. She told us that all her husband's kids should be seated up front, and I didn't have the heart to tell her they weren't his kids on the day of her husband's funeral when she was such a mess, so I bit my tongue and supported my children. It was after the service when everything went down. The kids came to sit in my car for a while, and we were laughing about something. My ex came over and asked how they could be laughing when they had just buried their stepdad, and why did they show no grief at all over the loss of the man who was part of their lives for 7 years. She said it was almost like they were glad he was gone. She told me they should have been looking way more somber after he passed. She told them if they really didn't care, they clearly needed help because her husband loved them. I stepped in and told her to lay off the kids. They are kids. She told me to stop interfering in how she parents our kids. My daughter ended up getting mad at her mum and told her that she wasn't sad he was gone. He was an arse, and she'd always hoped she would leave him. She stormed off and my son followed. X was going crazy, and I yelled and told her to cut it out and stop trying to make our kids perform a grieving routine over her husband. I told her they were trying to support her, and she should be proud of them for that. She started yelling back at me about what an asshole I am, so I walked away. I don't think you're the asshole here. It's it's a difficult situation. It's like it must be very difficult for your ex, but in that same sense, it's not right for her to expect grief out of anyone. It's weird that she is so angry about it. You needed to stand up for your children because no one else was going to, and I'm glad you did. So really, not the bad guy here. Am I the bad guy for disliking my sister and telling her that she's going to die alone and unhappy if she doesn't change? I, 17 female, dislike my sister, 15 female. First of all, I want to get this straight. I do love my sister. I'd give her a kidney in a heartbeat if she needed it. I just don't like her. I don't think we'd be friends if we weren't sisters. She and I were very close when we were young and got along really well. However, we drifted apart when I grew up a bit. I wasn't always nice to her and vice versa. I didn't like it when she tried to hang out with me and my friends, and I realized that she only did it to get close to me, but at the time I found it very annoying. Lately, I've been trying to be nicer to her and improve our relationship, as I will be leaving the country for university in July, but she makes it incredibly hard to stay civil. She's incredibly mean to our mother, is disrespectful, and also very catty. There have been several occasions where I caught her hanging out with someone only to talk badly about them to her friends afterwards. Also, when she asks to borrow my clothes, and when I do say yes, she comes into my room and claims she is drowning in them. Yesterday, she cried because she realized that we are the same pants size and she doesn't want to be fat like me. We are both at a healthy weight for our height, so I don't go where she got the fat comment from, but whatever. This makes me feel like crap, to be honest, because I've been really trying to get along with her and feel like my efforts are for nothing. Also, during dinner, she always tries to make my achievements seem like nothing. I do the IB and recently got accepted to a very prestigious university in the field I want to study. During dinner last night, when I shared the news with my parents, she immediately said, "Wow, they must be taking anyone since your grades are really low and your CV is garbage." Anyways, this comment made me furious, and 12 years worth of resentment poured out of me. I yelled at her that she was a horrible person, and I hope she knows she will die alone and unhappy if she doesn't change. She cried and ran to her room, and my parents told me that while I was right to be angry, I had no right to yell those things at my sister. I've been getting calls and messages from family members to apologize, but to be honest, I don't want to. Am I the bad guy? This is a little bit of a complicated one. I think at the end of the day, your sister is 15, and that is kind of what 15-year-olds are like. I know it's probably not a great opinion to have, right? And people will probably be like, that's a stupid thing to say. But 15-year-olds, most of the time, are so horrible and just so, like, they think they are incredible, and almost they are trying to get at you to make themselves feel better, because they're in that horrible stage of childhood and being a teenager. And you've got to think back and remember when you were that young, and it's horrible, and you say and do things that are disgusting. The thing about that, though, is it still doesn't make it correct. She can't be going around saying these things to people. Family is one thing, but you've said in this post she's going and saying this kind of stuff to random people, strangers, friends, things like that, and that's not okay. She has to learn. So while I don't think it was particularly right of you to go that far, she does have to learn at some point. No one is sticking up for you. No one is telling her not to. It doesn't sound like your parents are particularly putting their foot down and saying, don't talk to people like that. Teaching her that it's not okay to say those things. And so I would go with not the asshole, but there's a little bit of a a caveat on that, but still not the asshole. Am I the bad guy for wanting my boyfriend to get rid of his teddy bears? So my boyfriend is a great guy, but he has about 7 different teddy bears, all with names. Not from childhood, but like recently bought them between 3 to 5 years ago. He cuddles them and sometimes talks to them. He lives a normal life other than that. He makes good money and the relationship is overall good. It's not even like he ignores me. I just find it really weird and quite embarrassing. I told him he should grow up and stop being crazy, and he started crying, and now is in the other room talking to the stupid bear again instead of talking it out with me. How does this guy make enough money for a 3-bed house on his own, yet does stupid stuff like this? For the record, we don't live together yet and completely support ourselves separately. Should I encourage him to get into a hobby or something? Wow, do you sound so insecure about yourself? My God, this is ridiculous. So you're telling me that your boyfriend is a great guy, but you hate him? Like, you what? Like, this is such a non-issue. It's such a non-issue. I'd be embarrassed to be going out with you, to be honest. Like, how sad do you have to be that you can't let someone else do something that they want to do? It's not like, honestly, I think it's quite normal, is it not? To like, for all sorts of if this was a girl, for example, if this was a girl and they were buying teddy bears and etc etc, you wouldn't even bat an eye. But because it's a guy and your boyfriend, it's weird and embarrassing. And honestly, you are a piece of work. You are a real piece of work. Sort yourself out, man. Sort yourself out. Am I the bad guy for saying my brother and his girlfriend may not make it? I, 30 female, met my fiancée Ella, 30 female, in September of 2018. We got engaged in January and have been planning our wedding for 2024. We plan to get married on our 6-year anniversary. It's a date that all the most important people in our life have available, and it also just means so much to us. My brother Mark, 25 male, has been dating his girlfriend Iris, 24 female, since September of 2022. They have moved pretty quickly, moving in together already and seriously discussing the future. I don't think there's anything wrong with this, just again setting the stage here a bit. But when I mentioned to Iris my wedding date, she got a little weirded out and said, that's our 2-year anniversary. I pointed out that their anniversary is 2 weeks prior to mine and Ella's. She acted like she was fine with that. As we're still a little far out, not much planning has been done outside booking the venue. However, I have subscribed to a few bridal magazines just to get ideas. Ella and I are big dream board people, so it's fun for us to try and figure out what exactly we want. Mark and Iris came over on Sunday. She spotted the magazines and began flipping through one. Iris kept making comments saying, I don't know if we'll be in town that week, meaning my wedding. Mark said they would be. Iris asked, don't you want to do something special for our anniversary? Again, we all pointed out that their anniversary is 2 weeks before mine and Ella's. Unless they plan some luxury vacation, they're going to be back in time. Iris then turned to me and said, if Mark proposes to me within the next year, we'll be getting married on our anniversary. It'll be hard for the families to come up for 2 weddings in 1 month. Mark and I attended the same university, a good amount of distance away from our hometown. Most of our family still lives there, and they all plan to come to my wedding. Honestly, I didn't really feel threatened by this, which I know is what Iris wanted. I simply smiled and said, "If you're still together, then we'll see how that pans out." Iris sat straight up and asked, "What's that supposed to mean?" I said, "You've been together 7 months. Not saying you can't know he's the one, but I'm not going to change the date for someone who may not even be around next year." Iris got very quiet and didn't speak for a half hour. The conversation shifted to something else. Eventually, she got up and said she was going outside to smoke. Mark got a text not long after and then went outside. Ella and I could hear arguing. Mark came back in and said that Iris was leaving. I understood why. Iris, however, has texted me several times saying I'm invalidating her and Mark's relationship. Mark has said while he understands my point, I didn't have to say that. Am I the bad guy?
I mean, you're not wrong. I just don't know if it was right to say it. I think that's the thing.
The point is completely correct. And I think with most people, it's like, it's almost an unwritten thing. You know, you don't have to say it. You shouldn't have to tell someone that. It's just kind of like, that's how it is. It's like, for example, I have an example for this. My cousin's getting married next year, and he invited me and my partner, but he wasn't sure originally, and spoke to some people saying, "Well, should I invite both of them? They haven't been together for too long. Should I give him the +1, etc., etc." And it's just kind of that unwritten rule. It is something that people are gonna think about because it's a lot of money, and in this situation, it's not even about guests. It's not even about, well, should I invite her? You've said you're inviting her. She's being rude about something else entirely. Yeah, I don't think you're the bad guy, to be honest. I just don't think I don't think it was necessary to say it right there, but I understand why you did.